Incredible but true. Ferrari had hoped to start the season strongly, but ended up losing more than 0.7 of a second to the McLarens in qualifying. What went wrong? What did Leclerc say about a mysterious car change? Stay until the end because we're going to analyze everything in detail. Do you think Ferrari can make a comeback in the race? Leave us your opinion in the comments. The 2025 Australian Grand Prix marked the start of the new Formula One season with a qualifying session that produced many surprises and some concerns for Scuderia Ferrari. Expectations were high after pre-season testing in Bahrain, where the Italian team showed signs of competitiveness. Furthermore, the free practice sessions at Albert Park indicated that Ferrari could be in contention for the top spots, with Charles Leclerc even leading the second practice session. However, when the decisive moment arrived in qualifying, the reality was very different. The final result left both Ferrari drivers out of the fight for pole position. Charles Leclerc qualified in 7th place, while Lewis Hamilton, making his official debut with the team, finished just behind in 8th. This performance left them on the 4th row of the grid, far from the benchmark time set by McLaren, which achieved an impressive 1-2 finish with Lando Norris leading the way, followed by Oscar Piastri. The gap between Ferrari and McLaren proved to be wider than expected. Lando Norris took pole with a time of 1 minute and 15.096 seconds, with Piastri just 0.084 seconds behind. Max Verstappen, the reigning world champion, had to settle for 3rd place, finishing almost 0.4 off Norris's time. George Russell, driving the Mercedes, completed the 2nd row. On the other hand, Ferrari was not only out of contention for the front row, but the gap to the leaders was considerable. Leclerc was more than 0.7 off pole, while Hamilton was just a few thousandths behind his teammate. This performance gap is a clear indication that Ferrari still has work to do to close in on the lead. The situation is even more worrying considering the performance shown in the practice sessions. During free practice, the Ferraris were competitive in short runs, but when it came to qualifying, McLaren and Red Bull found more speed, while Ferrari failed to extract the maximum from the SF25. A closer analysis of the lap sectors reveals that Ferrari lost most of its time in the corners, where the car's balance and downforce weren't enough to match its direct rivals. Despite having good straight-line speed and decent braking performance, the lack of grip in the more technical sections of the circuit was the factor that kept them from fighting for the top positions. This initial result raises several unknowns for the race and the rest of the season. Was it a car setup issue or a structural limitation of the SF25? Will Ferrari be able to close this gap with McLaren and Red Bull in the upcoming races? These are questions that only time and the development of the car will answer. Ferrari arrived at the Australian Grand Prix with a car that promised to be competitive, but the qualifying session exposed several key weaknesses that explain its lack of performance against McLaren and Red Bull. A detailed analysis of the telemetry and data collected after the session revealed that the SF25's time loss was not due to a single factor, but rather a combination of elements that affected the car's performance at different points on the circuit. One of the most striking aspects was its top speed. In absolute terms, Ferrari had no problems on the straight, displaying a competitive top speed in some cases superior to that of the McLarens. In fact, on the main straight, Charles Leclerc reached a top speed 2 km/h faster than Lando Norris, and on the circuit's second long straight, both cars recorded virtually the same speed. This suggests that Ferrari's deficit in qualifying did not stem from a lack of engine power or excessive aerodynamic drag. Another area where Ferrari showed solid performance was under braking. The data indicated that Leclerc was able to brake later than the McLarens in several key corners, gaining small fractions of time in those sectors. The car's stability on corner entry gave the drivers confidence to fully exploit the braking system's potential, which under normal conditions should have helped them be more competitive in qualifying. However, the advantage in braking and straight-line speed was not enough to compensate for the SF25's most critical performance issue, its lack of cornering grip. At each of the circuit's corners, McLaren displayed superior balance, allowing its drivers to maintain a higher minimum speed than Ferrari. In the medium and high-speed corners, the difference became even more evident, with Norris and Piastri managing to navigate these sectors with greater stability and less time lost compared to Leclerc and Hamilton. The main problem appears to lie in downforce and traction. While McLaren was able to maximize cornering grip without compromising its straight-line speed, Ferrari struggled to achieve the same efficiency. The consequence of this lack of downforce was reflected on corner exits, where the red cars struggled to apply power without losing stability. This not only affected the speed with which they could accelerate out of each corner, but also led to increased rear tire wear, something that could become a problem in the race if a suitable solution isn't found. Another point that caught attention was the inconsistency in lap times. Throughout qualifying, Ferrari struggled to repeat the fastest sectors on each attempt, suggesting that the car is more sensitive to changes in track temperature, tire pressure, or road conditions compared to its direct rivals. While McLaren and Red Bull quickly managed to find a setup that allowed them to consistently improve their times, Ferrari seemed to lose performance in the final phase of the session, just when the track was at its best. This analysis makes it clear that Ferrari's deficit in qualifying is not due to a single issue, but rather a combination of technical factors affecting the SF25's cornering stability and its ability to extract maximum performance from a single lap. Addressing these weaknesses will be key if the Italian team wants to close in on McLaren and Red Bull in the upcoming races and fight for victory instead of settling for secondary grid positions. After qualifying for the Australian Grand Prix, Charles Leclerc hinted at a detail that has raised many questions among Formula One fans and analysts. In his subsequent statements, the Monegasque driver hinted that Ferrari was forced to make a change to the car before qualifying, resulting in a significant loss of performance. Without specifying the exact nature of the modification, his remarks raised suspicions that the team may have had to sacrifice speed for reasons of reliability or regulatory compliance. Such situations are not unusual in Formula One. Throughout history, several teams have had to adjust their setup at the last minute due to concerns related to the car's technical legality or potential mechanical failures detected at the last minute. In this case, what's striking is that Ferrari appeared to be in a much more competitive position during the free practice sessions, especially in FP2, where Leclerc set the fastest time. However, in qualifying, the car clearly lost competitiveness, suggesting that the aforementioned change may have had a direct impact on its performance. One of the most discussed theories is that Ferrari may have modified some component of the aerodynamic package to ensure it complied with the technical regulations. In the past, the FIA has requested clarifications or last-minute modifications when it has identified elements that could have been outside the limits of the regulations. If this were the case, the team may have had to alter the design of the rear wing, the wings, or some other key component, which would have affected downforce and consequently cornering performance. Another possibility is that Ferrari faced a reliability issue that forced adjustments to avoid a mechanical failure in the middle of qualifying. If the team detected an anomaly in the engine, suspension, or cooling system, it may have opted to make preemptive changes that compromised the SF25's performance. In a calendar as demanding as Formula One, where every point counts, teams must make difficult decisions between striving for top speed in qualifying or preserving the car's reliability for the race. Beyond the hypotheses, the impact of this change was reflected in the lap times. Ferrari went from fighting for the top positions in practice to being relegated to the fourth row in qualifying. The 0.7 gap with McLaren was too large to be explained solely by a bad lap or an unfavorable track. Something happened at Ferrari between FP3 and qualifying that significantly reduced its competitiveness. What makes this case even more intriguing is that, so far, neither the team nor the drivers have provided further details about the change in question. Unlike other occasions when teams clearly explain the problems faced, Ferrari has remained silent, which only fuels speculation. In the upcoming races, it will be crucial to observe whether this problem persists or if the team manages to regain its lost pace, which could provide clues as to whether this change was a temporary solution or a sign of a deeper problem in the SF25's design. If Ferrari really had to make an unexpected change for reliability or regulatory reasons, this could be a worrying sign for the rest of the season. In a grid where every technical detail makes a difference, any weakness in the car's development could take Ferrari out of the title fight and force it to focus on fixing problems rather than improving performance. The coming weeks will be key to understanding whether this adjustment was just a setback or if it exposes more serious limitations for the car with which Ferrari aims to return to the top of Formula One. With qualifying now finalized, Ferrari faces a significant challenge ahead of the 2025 Australian Grand Prix. Starting from the fourth row of the grid with Charles Leclerc in 7th and Lewis Hamilton in 8th, the Italian team will have to find an effective strategy to move up the field and minimize the gap to the leaders. Although qualifying did not meet the team's expectations, the race offers a different scenario where factors such as tire management, pit strategy, and weather conditions can completely change the situation. One of the most determining factors will be tire strategy. Albert Park is a circuit that, despite being resurfaced in recent years, still shows considerable degradation, especially on the softer compounds. Ferrari will have to decide whether to opt for an aggressive strategy with faster but shorter-lasting tires or prioritize compound conservation to avoid an additional pit stop. In recent seasons, one-stop strategies have been common in Melbourne, but if degradation is greater than expected, a two-stop strategy could become necessary to maintain a good pace until the end. Another key factor will be race pace management. Although Ferrari struggled to find speed on a fast lap in qualifying, its performance on long runs could be more competitive. During practice sessions, the SF25 showed improved stability in race conditions, which could allow it to close the gap to McLaren and Red Bull once the competition develops at a sustained pace. However, one issue Ferrari will need to address is traction on corner exit, as this weakness could compromise its ability to defend against attacks from other teams in the early turns or when exiting the DRS zone. Track position management will also play a key role. Ferrari will start the race surrounded by rivals who have demonstrated similar or even superior pace in qualifying. George Russell, who will start from the second row for Mercedes, could present a difficult obstacle to overcome, while Red Bull, although they did not dominate qualifying, have proven to be stronger in race pace. The key for Leclerc and Hamilton will be to gain positions at the start or in the early laps, avoiding getting caught in traffic, which could compromise their strategy. Weather conditions could add an additional layer of complexity to the race. Forecasts indicate lower temperatures on race day compared to qualifying, and there is even a possibility of rain at certain times. If conditions change and rain appears at some point during the race, tire management and timely decision-making will be crucial. Ferrari has historically struggled in mixed conditions, but with two experienced drivers, the team could capitalize on any opportunity if track conditions become unpredictable. Furthermore, potential on-track incidents and the intervention of the safety car could work in Ferrari's favor if they manage to execute a flexible strategy. Albert Park is a circuit where mistakes can be costly, and any accident or race interruption could open up strategic opportunities for those teams that react quickly and effectively. In the past, cautions have allowed for important strategic changes that have determined the outcome of the race. Another point to consider is the role that Leclerc and Hamilton will play in the team's overall strategy. If Ferrari wants to maximize its result, it will be crucial that both drivers work together in the early part of the race to ensure they don't waste time fighting each other. However, if at any point there is an opportunity for one of them to advance faster than the other, Ferrari will have to make difficult decisions about how to manage the team's strategy without creating unnecessary friction between its drivers. Overall, the key for Ferrari in this race will be to minimize damage and try to score as many points as possible while looking for solutions to the performance issues revealed in qualifying. The season is long and car development will be key, but a good result in Australia could be crucial to maintaining the team's confidence and laying a solid foundation for the upcoming races. The 2025 Australian Grand Prix will be a major first test for Ferrari, not only in terms of race pace, but also in the team's ability to react strategically to a difficult start. If they can run a clean race and take advantage of the opportunities that arise, they could mitigate the bad taste left by qualifying and start the season on a more positive note.